Hello and welcome everyone to the daily news analysis of 23rd of November 2023। तो इम्पोर्टेंट आर्टिकल हिंदू न्यूज़पेपर से पहला जो है ऑन हीडेड एडवाइस, लिसन टू द पीपल नॉट द नंबर्स, देन ग्लिमर ऑफ होप्स, रिपोर्टिंग एनिमल क्रुएल्टी मेक्स चिल्ड्रन सेफर, ए डायलेमा ओवर ट्राइबल लैंड राइट्स, देन हरियाणा's employment reservation law, what is the ruling against the UK's Rwanda deal, Israel and Hamas agree to 4-day ceasefire in Gaza. Then Das Flags model-based lending warns banks NBFC of undue risk build-up. NBFC likely to see asset growth of 14 to 17 next fiscal, says CRISIL. India seeks private money for coal-fired power plant despite Western opposition. COP28 turn attention to potent methane emission. पहला जो है ऑन हीडेड एडवाइस। Ongoing proceedings before the Supreme Court raised concerns about the conduct of some governors. The key issue that has forced the state governments to approach the court for redress is the perceived, perverse manner in which incumbent in Raj Bhavan have used the absence of a time frame for granting assent to bill to harass and frustrate elected regime. When the court raised the question, what was the governor doing for 3 years with respect to the Tamil Nadu Governor R.N. Ravi, it was underscoring the fact that he disposed of pending bills only after the court's observation about the delay in an earlier hearing. The governor's reluctance to act until an aggrieved government approached the court seems deliberate. The hearing was marked by some questions and answers about the implication of governor's action in withholding his assent to 10 bills and the response of the state assembly in passing the bill for a second time. Preliminary observation by the court suggests that the scheme of Article 200 of Constitution, which deal with the presentation of bills passed by the legislature to the governor for assent, will come under a good deal of scrutiny in this matter, with the court noting that the governor cannot refuse assent to the reenacted bills. The present legislative impasse can be given a quick resolution if Mr. Ravi acts on the observation. However, the matter should not end there. The larger issue requires a clear enunciation of the law. The tenor of Constituent Assembly debates indicates that it is intended to make the power of granting or withholding assent to bill, or even returning them for reconsideration, exercisable solely on the advice of a Council of Ministers. However, in practice, many governors have acted on their own, especially in reserving bills for the President's considerations. The Supreme Court must now come up with an authoritative decision so that uncooperative governors do not use such grey areas to their advantage. It must also be clarified whether withholding assent is a final act of rejection of a bill or it needs a follow-up action in the form of returning the bill with a message for reconsideration by the House. As stated in the first proviso to Article 200, the proviso bars governors from withholding assent to any bill they had returned for reconsideration and has been adopted again by the legislature. The issue has also highlighted constitutional ambiguities on the role of governor. The aid and advice clause that is at the core of parliamentary democracy is somewhat undermined by the clauses that allow governors to give themselves discretion they were never meant to have. Such provision need wholesome reconsiderations. Next, listen to the people, not the numbers. The Indian economy has an incomes problem, not a growth problem. Incomes are not growing sufficiently or sustainably for a very large number of people. Even though Overall GDP growth is good. There is increasing pressure for reservation of jobs for all economically weaker sections regardless of caste or religion. Economists on both sides for the government and those against it are debating whether the economy is creating enough jobs and are questioning the veracity of the government's data. Those against the government also want to show that the problem of growth while insufficient jobs has been created by the policies of the present government and not the previous one. They are like Sheikh Chili who was looking for his lost keys under the lamp rather than in the darkness where he lost them. The data is what they can see, but it cannot explain the problem and will not point to the right solution. The US economy. The US economy seems to be doing well. According to its headline, economic numbers, growth is good and employment numbers have been improving, yet polls show that a large majority of US citizens are dissatisfied with the state of their economy. This has become a major issue before the presidential election scheduled for next November. The US president even worked with striking auto workers, demanding a fair deal from their employers. US statistics of growth and employment whose veracity no one doubts are not measuring what really matters to common citizens. Workers want a fair deal and adequate and secure incomes to cope with inflation. The president agreed with the workers that CEOs of companies were paying themselves far too much while asking workers to tighten their belt to improve the competitiveness of US companies. Jobs that are not good. The overall problem of incomes in India, according to the economist, is that insufficient numbers have moved out of agriculture into manufacturing. This has been the historical pattern for sustainable growth in all countries, including a USA 100 years ago and China more recently. India's policymaker thought they had found a shortcut in 1990s directly from agriculture to services. With the boost in the growth of exportable information technology services, the shortcut has ended in a cul-de-sac. There is very little room in high-end services to absorb the large number of young Indians in need of jobs. Moreover, these jobs require levels of education that people in rural areas do not have. Therefore, when they move out of the agriculture, they need work that fits their present abilities and put them onto a ladder that they can climb. They need jobs where they can learn higher skills and earn more. Labor-intensive manufacturing services and construction provide them the fast step. The millions of Indians who have moved out of agriculture in the last 3 decades have moved into such jobs. The problem is that the jobs they have, irrespective of the sector, are not good jobs. They do not pay enough. They are temporary or on short contracts, and they do not provide social security or assistance to develop further skills. In fact, even in large modern manufacturing enterprises, workers are employed through contractors to provide employers with the flexibility to reduce cost. Contract workers are paid much less than regular workers. They have insecure employment and are not assisted to develop higher skills. The world is at a turning point. New ideas of economies are required to create a more environmentally sustainable and socially harmonious future before it is too late. Statistics of growth and employment measure what we used to think should be measured. New concept of work are required. Also new designs of enterprises in which the work is done as well as new evaluation of the social and economic relationship between participants in these enterprises. The drive for green, organic and local to reduce carbon emission and improve care of environment will make small. The problem is that the jobs they have, irrespective of the sector, are not good jobs. They do not pay enough. They are temporary or on short contracts, and they do not provide social security or assistance to develop further skills. In fact, even in large modern manufacturing enterprises, workers are employed through contractor to provide employers with flexible flexibility to reduce cost. Contract workers are paid much less than regular workers. They have insecure employment and are not assisted to develop higher skill. The world is at a turning point. New ideas of economies are required to create a more environmentally sustainable and socially harmonious future before it is too late. Statistics of growth and employment measure what we used to think should be measured. New concept of work are required, also new designs of enterprise in which the work is done, as well as the new evaluation of social and economic relationship between participants in these enterprises. These the drive for green, organic and local to reduce carbon emission and improve care of the environment will make small enterprises between enterprises beautiful again. Economies of the scope will determine the viability of enterprises rather than economies of scale. Denser local economies wave will develop rather than long global supply chains through which specialized products made on scales in different parts of the world are connecting producer with consumer in other distant parts. The economic values in caregiving attention will shift towards creating genuine social enterprises rather than enterprises for creating economic efficiencies and surpluses, which corporate enterprises are designed for those who provide care, and their work of caregiving must be valued more than economists value them today. In the present paradigm of economic growth, caregivers traditionally, women are plucked out of families which are a natural social enterprise to work in factories, offices, and retail in enterprise designed to produce monetary economic value. When economists measure women's participation in the labor force, they value only what women do in formal enterprises for money. They seem to assign no value to the informal work they do as outside their homes to earn money, whether as domestic caregivers in others' homes or in family farms. Moreover, they are unable to see any economic value in the caregiving they provide without monetary compensation in their families and communities. The prevalent paradigm of economic theory is distorting social organization, which families are the suit the requirements of corporations, which are formal economic organization. Thus, the money measured economy grows while the care that humans can and should give each other reduces. Measurements, economic growth and employment must not be made any longer in 20th century concepts of economic growth. They must be reformed to reflect forms of work and enterprises we want more of the in the future. For this paradigm shift, the process policymaking must begin with listening to those who have not been given much value in the small holding farmers, small entrepreneurs, and women. Presently, their views are overruled by those who have powers in the present paradigm, experts in economic, large financial institutions, and large business corporations. The lesson for policymaker is this: do not count on historical statistics to guide good policy for the future. Listen to the people and what matters to them. Then next, a glimmer of hopes. The Israel-Hamas deal to release hostages and Palestinian prisoners in return for a pause in fighting offers a much-needed humanitarian relief to the 2.3 million people of the Gaza Strip who have been living in unspeakable misery since October 7. According to the deal clinched in talks mediated by Qatar, Hamas will release 50 civilian hostages, while Israel will release 150 Palestinian prisoners. Both sides will also halt fighting for 4 days. The Israeli government has started stated that if Hamas releases more hostages, the pause in fighting could be extended, offering a glimmer of hope for securing a more sustained ceasefire. Hamas captured about 240 hostages during its October 7 cross-border attack in Israel, in which at least 1,200 people were killed when Israel launched its counterattack the same day. It promised to cross Hamas, eliminate security threats from Gaza for food for good and free hostages. In the past 6 weeks, Israeli attacks have turned Gaza into a graveyard, killing at least 13,000 Palestinians, a vast majority of them women and children. But Israel simultaneously began indirect talks with Hamas seeking to free hostages, which resulted in the current deal. But this is not enough for the people of Gaza who have been bombed, shelled, displaced, and denied essential supplies such as food, fuel, and medicine. Immediately want is a lasting ceasefire. Israel initially refused to have any talks with the Hamas terrorists and promised to dismantle the Islamist militant group. Israel anger was understandable given the horror unleashed by Hamas, but in its response, thankful Israel is collectively punishing the people of Gaza. Several Israeli ministers have issued dangerous and repugnant statement from nuclear threats to welcoming epidemic in southern Gaza. But after 6 weeks of fighting, Israel is far from achieving its own declared objectives, which raises question about the effectiveness of its military strategy. It stormed Al Shifa Hospital, Gaza's largest medical facility, alleging that a Hamas command center was located beneath it. More than a week since, Israel is yet to produce any credible evidence to back this claim, but the fact that Israel and Hamas have reached a deal suggests that both sides are ready to engage with each other even amidst high decibel propaganda and bloody fightings. They should build on the momentum generated by the deal and extend the pause into a full-fledged ceasefire. That is the only way to release all the hostages, provide lasting relief to the Palestinians, and calm spiraling tension in West Asia. Then नेक्स्ट आज का जो लास्ट एडिटोरियल का पर्सन है रिपोर्टिंग एनिमल क्रुएल्टी मेक्स चिल्ड्रन सेफर. Child abuse is a grave and rampant in India. In 2007, the Union Ministry of Women and Child Development published the largest empire study about the incidence of child abuse in India. The study specifically examined the prevalence of physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, and girl child neglect in India. It found that 2 out of every 3 children were physically abused. Over half the children reported having faced one or more forms of sexual abuse, and every second child reporting facing emotional abuse. Despite these troubling statistics, the factors contributing to child abuse remains unaddressed. Child abuse in India has been attributed to structure and size of a family, lack of effective implementation of law, poverty, illiteracy, and even cultural factors. However, one crucial element that has been missing from the discourse on the child protection in India is the link between victims of child abuse and animal cruelty, which we discuss here. Animal cruelty and child abuse. The link between animal cruelty and human violence first came to light in 1751 with William Hogarth, fourth stage of cruelty. Since then, there has been a plethora of studies highlighting this undeniable link. A 1980 pilot study conducted in England found evidence that suggested that children are at risk of abuse or neglect in households that abuse their family pet. According to the study, out of 23 families that had a history of animal abuse, 83% have been identified by human social service agencies as having children at risk of abuse or neglect. A different study of 53 families in which child abuse has occurred, carried out in New Jersey, US in 1983, found that animal abuse and child abuse co-occurred in 88% of the cases. In a 2019 study on homes with interpersonal violence in the US, it was found that 12.3% of the cases, threats and violence towards animals are used as a means of coerce children into compliance so that they do not report the abuser. As per the study, since animals are threatened to result in compliance of child, some of this violence is done without the knowledge of other caregivers, and children are reluctant to discuss the animal abuse for fear of what might happen to the animal or themselves. Easier to detect. Further, in many cases, animal abuse is easier to detect than child abuse and is also usually easier for victim of domestic violence, including children, to report. Early identification of homes with animal abuse may save other human victims encountering abuse. This can also serve as circumstantial evidence in custody and child abuse hearing, as it is difficult for children to provide detailed accounts of their own abuse. There is a strong link between animal cruelty and child abuse, and there is an urgent need to investigate it further in Indian context, even though law enforcement agencies in other countries have devoted resources to studying the co-occurrence of animal cruelty with other forms of violent crimes, especially crimes against children. There is no study that empirically access this link in India enforcing anti-cruelty laws. In fact, the National Crime Records Bureau does not even collect data on offences registered and prosecuted under the Prevention of Cruelty to Animal Act 1960, as studies in other countries have shown. The collection and aggregation of this data can prove to be a significant tool for law enforcement agencies to understand how different crimes overlap and prevent the occurrence of these crimes. Poor enforcement of anti-cruelty laws therefore not only harms animals but also human victims of violence. Reporting animal abuse and consistently enforcing anti-cruelty laws can act as a deterrent for further acts of violence against not only animals but also humans. It is therefore imperative to report, register, and prosecute cases involving animal cruelty. The link shows us that both human and animal victims of crimes are prone to victimization by the same perpetrators. This is an opportunity for the stakeholders in the child protection and animal protection movement to collaborate to meet their collective objective of reducing abuse. Reporting and prosecuting animal abuse is not just about saving animals, it is about protecting our children from violence and securing a brighter future for them. Understanding this important link can stop the cycle of violence at its source and help make our children safer.